In today's video, we're going to talk about things that we consider when buying an investment property here in Colorado Springs.
The first and most important thing is creating a budget. We have to know exactly what we're going to be able to spend on an investment property. So we talk to our lender, we get pre-approved for a certain dollar amount, and then we start looking for homes in that price range.
So right after that, obviously we discuss the return we want to see. So with a set budget in mind, we know how much we want to spend, how much we have set aside for improvements if needed. Then we start talking about what is the return that we're wanting to see on this property that we're about to buy. So sometimes we're just looking to break even and we need to park our money somewhere, and sometimes we're looking for something where we're getting a bigger return. So that's something you should discuss and make sure you set a number so that when you're looking at properties, you can quickly decide whether or not that falls into those parameters that you've set for yourself.
And the next thing that we do is researching the area based on those returns and the rentability. So if it's on a certain part of town that's away from all of businesses, military bases, civilization, basically, we probably aren't going to look in those areas. But we usually look in the areas that are pretty close to businesses that are growing. North end of town is closer to like the IT business companies.
So we try to look for places that are growing, where a lot of people are coming in and out, where there is a bigger demand for rentals, just because we know we're going to get our return quicker and are most likely guaranteed the return that we've set out for. Then we check for HOAs and specific communities. So we've narrowed it down to an area that we want to invest in for whatever reason, whether it's that there's a lack of housing, for example, out east by Schriever Air Force Base, or we're buying somewhere up north because there's a lot of new companies that are hiring a lot of employees. So then we look within the neighborhoods on whether or not they have HOAs, whether or not those HOAs allow for investors to come in and start renting the homes, and if there's any restrictions that could possibly hurt us with our rental being in that area.
We are careful. We had one home that we were already in the process of having built, and they already had the HOA bylaws, and we read through them. Everything was fine. And then they started building, but they were taking longer than expected. And then the HOA bylaws actually changed in the middle of the build to not allow for investors to purchase properties or rent them out as long-term rentals. So we ended up having to cancel that contract, unfortunately, and look in a different area. One thing or a couple things that you want to avoid when purchasing an investment property, and things that we definitely don't want in our investment properties, are basements, decks, and homes that need a lot of maintenance. We typically try to stick to newer homes or newly built homes just because of the warranties, the maintenance that it's gonna save us time and money on. And then basements and decks, they just become money pits, unfortunately. A lot of water damage to basements. Decks need to be taken care of every single year, so it's just a maintenance cost that we don't want to spend.
Also, basements here in the Springs are more susceptible to flooding from heavy rains or snow, so we generally avoid that. And again, that's going to vary for everyone. You might consider a basement for a different reason, but for us personally, we try to mitigate that risk and just pick homes that are not going to have a ton of money and upkeep, so that doesn't reduce our bottom line. He touched on new construction homes, and sometimes we do consider them. When we do consider them, it's because they're usually cheaper. So if we're in a time where, resale in one area, a home might go for $550, but then you can build it new for $480, we're going to be going with the new construction home. Besides it being cheaper, there are other benefits. If you're building the home new, you have typically, with most builders, a 1-year bumper to bumper warranty, a 2-year warranty on the mechanicals, and a 10-year warranty on the structural items. And because the furnace, the AC, water heater, all those things are new, we're not thinking or having to worry about replacing them for at least 5 to 10 years. Appliances can go quicker, but with everything in the home being newer, it really allows us to use those funds that we typically set aside for improvements and things going out for other things. So people often approach us and think, well, why would you build a new home and then have a tenant move in and ruin it? It's typically not the case for us. We usually are able to also charge more rent for it, and overall we're worrying about the property less. If we are at capacity and we feel like we're super busy and want even less maintenance for homes, we do sometimes purchase purchase properties in townhome communities where the HOA will take care of all the exterior, the painting, the roof, just because we're paying a small fee. But then if any of those items get damaged or need replacement, we're not having to worry about that cost. It's already built into the rent that we're charging the tenant.
So once we find our perfect home in the perfect area that's going to give us the return that we are looking for, we make some small improvements. Sometimes we take out all the carpet and just put in laminate flooring just so it's easy maintenance and it's easier for the tenants and less work for us later on down the road, so we don't have to replace the carpet. And then we find renters to fill the home, and we rinse and repeat.
So that's how we identify investment properties here in the Springs. We've been pretty successful, haven't had a ton of issues. One thing I will say is that if you're looking into investing, whether that's flipping, buying a home to rent out long term, or doing short term rentals, be sure that you have someone on your side that's providing you with resources, and do some research ahead of time so that you're not getting into a situation where you're losing money. But other than that, if you have any other questions on how we got started in investing, or just about yourself investing in general here in the Springs, feel free to reach out. We're always here to help.